speaking about the idea that when something is viewed from below, even if it's a higher level, that level is called dark. What do you mean it's dark? This is all back, by the way, going back behemshach to explaining what the idea of oir is, what the concept of oir is. And in continuation with that, he explains that something to be called light needs to be perceived. And when you're dealing, let's say, with the world of Bria, you say, Yoitzer Oir Boire Choshech, every morning we say in davening. Why do we say Yetzira is Oir and Bria is Choshech? Because Bria, being above and removed from us, therefore it is like darkness in comparison to us, because we cannot comprehend it. In a similar vein that we say about thought versus speech, that thought in comparison to someone outside of us is dark. It's not revealed to him. He doesn't see it. Even though for us, from our perspective, from our point of view, thought is something that is more revealed, more of my mind, more of my ideas I could understand and reveal in my thoughts than I could reveal in my speech. But from the perspective of someone outside of me, thought is considered dark, and Bria is considered dark in comparison to us, and Yitzira, speech, which is likened to thought in its speech in the spiritual realms, is considered light. Now, another example of seeing this relationship between Yoitzer Oir with a lower level and Boire Choshech with a higher level, though we are calling it darkness, is the idea that we touch our tefillin. When we say Yoitzer Oir Boire Choshech, we touch our tefillin, and specifically the tefillin shel yad by Yoitzer Oir and the tefillin shel rosh by Boire Choshech. So you can explain the significance of these two tefillins in regards to the greater revelation of light. So again, line 7, end of the line. Therefore, when he recites Yoitzer Oir, he touches the hand tefillin, the arm tefillin. And when he recites the words Boire Choshech in the bracha, he touches the head tefillin. The head tefillin are higher than the tefillin shel yad. So now he's going to explain how come. Al pi nigla, we know that is so, but he's going to explain al pi Kabbalah how the head tefillin is higher than the hand tefillin. In Chassidus and Kabbalah, it says that tefillin shel yad is an debossed seal. It's a seal that the letters are inside, and therefore when you place it, let's say on hot wax, it will cause the letters to protrude from the wax. The tefillin shel yad u'chaysim boilet, and the head tefillin shel rosh u'chaysim boilet, and the head tefillin is a protruding seal. So what's the difference between them? Chaysim shekeya, what is the debossed seal? Hu bechinas ha'oir sheshekeya u'mislabish bekelim v'nimdad kfi oifen ha'kelim. Just like the debossed seal, the seal goes inside, the same thing, Chaysim shekeya spiritually indicates that type of light that goes into, that sinks into and is enclosed in the vessels, and it's measured according to the vessels. V'chaysim boilet, and a protruding seal, hu bechinas ha'oir sheboilet me'hakelim. Just like when the seal protrudes, the letters are protruding from the surface. The same thing, it's talking about a light that cannot be contained in the vessels, it protrudes out of the vessels. Meaning that's higher and becoming enclosed in the vessels. Like it's explained to the Amarim about tefillin and that's on the in Shir HaShirim section of the Torah, Dibra Maschel Simeni Kachoisim, in the mimer titled "Place Me Like a Seal." So now that we know that the head tefillin is higher than Seder Ishtalshlus, and the hand tefillin is dibas seal, meaning it's the light that comes down to Seder Ishtalshlus. Therefore, when he says Boire Choshech, that's when he touches the head tefillin, because it's higher. The only thing is, why do we call it Choshech? It's called darkness in comparison to what is below, as we mentioned before. So he says, V'hainu, this means, the pasuk in Shir HaShirim is the request of the Yidden, that the Jewish people are asking, place me like a seal, that the light should come down from above to below, that light comes down through the level of the seal, whether a protruding seal that comes down or a debossed seal. The way the light comes from above, so if we're looking from that perspective, from the above perspective, so it's greater the quality and the level of the light that's beyond becoming enclosed in the vessels. It's called a protruding seal. Why? It's much higher than the light that becomes enclosed in the vessels. That's called a debossed seal, the seal that's sunken in. Because you have this obviously greater revelation. It's so high it can't come down to the vessels. But from our perspective, that we are trying to receive the light, let's give a simple example. A person can tell someone else an idea or try to teach a kid an idea that will blow their minds. But if it's too high, it's a great idea, it's a deep idea, it's an amazing idea. But he's trying to teach Gemara to a 5-year-old that should be learning Chumash. That is a very high level, but it's darkness for the child. Line 28. But in comparison to below, only the light that's enclosed in the vessels is called light from our perspective, because that's something that becomes revealed to the other. Top of page Yud, as opposed to the light that's beyond being enclosed in the vessels, Nikra b'shem choshech is called darkness, and therefore, in the same manner, like the difference between tefillin shel rosh, which is called chosem boilet, versus chosem shekev, the tefillin shel yad. So the chosem shekev is called oir in our world. So the same thing, is the same way that the world of Yitzirah is called light, and the Olam Abliya is called B'Shem Choshech, is called darkness, because from our perspective, Bria is barely there. It's just the first beginning of an inkling of creation. It's the first start of creation, and therefore it's called darkness because we can't perceive something that is barely created, barely existing. Let's go on to line 4, second paragraph on Yud. So now he's going to go from here to explain that in Oir, there's 2 levels of Oir. Oir Yashar and Oir Chayzer, and we're going to see it also in the word Ve'ahavta and Ava, which is the inner part of Toiv and Chesed. It's associated all with each other. Toiv, Chesed, Ava, Oir, they're all interconnected. So it says in line 4, V'kiva shekol inyan ha'oir, gili ha'ashpa'al azulas, as we have now explained, starting from the whole topic of oir is the revelation from the essence. It's not the essence itself. And then going on to say, well, it's about revelation. So if we're talking about revelation, who matters? The one who's receiving the revelation. Therefore, the more the person receiving the revelation can absorb it, the more it's considered oir. And if not, then it's not considered oir. So that's the purpose, that's the mission, that's the goal of the oir, to reach the other. Therefore, light is called goodness and kindness, because it's about giving to someone else. That's the definition of something that is good and kind. Like it says in the pasuk, Hashem saw the light that is good, because light is about giving, and toiv, good, is also about good giving, like it says, we know that good and kindness is one thing, like it says, only good and kindness will pursue me. So we see that goodness and kindness go together. So by calling the light good, it's because it's the idea of light is kindness, it's giving, it's sharing, it's about illuminating another. The entire idea of light is to give something over to the other, to leave the essence, like we say, and manifest outward to the receiver. The Inyan Ashba Lazulas Hurak Mitzatuva Yisbarach, and the idea of this flow and this giving over to another is only out of his goodness. May he be blessed. Shazel Inyan Tava Tovlet Heitiv. That's the idea that it says that the nature of one who is good is to do good. Since the cause of good and kindness is love, love is called the inner part of goodness and kindness. Where do we see that it's connected? It says, Avas olam avtich, I have loved you an everlasting love. Therefore I have drawn to you, I have given you kindness. So we see the pnimius is always the cause of the chitzonius. The love is the cause of the kindness. So therefore, if we've identified light, oir, with toiv and chesed, so by extension, working its way backwards, l'chein gam avo b'chinas oir. Therefore, love is the level of light. That's the idea that the word v'ahavta is the gematria, the numerical equivalent of oir times 2. Why is it oir times 2? Because there's oir yashar v'oir chayzer. There is the direct light, the light that comes from above to below, and then there is a returning light. There is a light that leaves the below to go upwards. Yesterday I gave just a simple mashal, just for a moment to wrap our minds around this oir chayzer. It's the Gemara says there's no drop of rain that comes down from above that doesn't have 2 drops that go up towards it. In the simple sense, what do we see? We see that when rain comes down, so then either it or the water that it falls into that's there will pop up as a result of it. So that's Ur Yasher, is the rain that comes from above to below. Ur Chayzer is like the rain that's leaving the below to go upwards. And the same thing, there's Ur of both kinds. And the Rebbe is going to discuss how this idea that we've just now said is a basic concept of Ur. Ur is about revelation to another. How can you have, the Rebbe is going to pose the question, when it's an Ur Chayzer seems to be leaving the vessels, seems to be jumping away from the world, returning to the Eibishter. How can that be called an Ur based on the whole picture that we've been painting now, that Ur is primarily about a revelation to another, to such a degree that Bria is called Chayshach because it's not able to be comprehended by another. Any questions before we go on? Okay, Ois Gimel, page Yud, line 18. According to what we said before, that the idea of oir, the whole definition of oir is about going outwards, going down below. We need to understand, why is the rebounding light, the returning light, why is it called Oir? We can understand that the direct light is called light, since it's a way of being drawn down from above to below. That's the entire idea of Oir. It's a revelation. It's coming outward. But a rebounding light, since the rebounding light is that it is returning and it's going back up, so it's about leaving the vessels. It's raising up from below to above. So it's now understood, why is it called light? So to be able to understand that, the Rebbe is going to go on the thing that we just now called the gematria of Vahafta is twice light. So it says in line 26, to be able to understand this, we first have to understand and preface the explanation of the word Vahafta, or the mitzvah Vahafta. The famous question is seemingly, it's not possible to have a command, there's to mitzvah that a person should love. That's explained concerning this. The command is about the meditation, to think into godliness. Top of page Yud Aleph. And the Vaizbananus, what is the subject of the Hizbananus? What does he have to meditate upon? Is the pasuk Shalifnei Vahafta, the pasuk prior to that. And Chumash is pasuk Rishon Kriyas Shema, the first pasuk of Kriyas Shema, which is Shema Yisrael Havai Elokeinu Havai Echad. And when one meditates upon that, then the Vahafta is a result of that. So the command is not directly to love, but the command is to do that which brings you to love, which means think into the words of Shema Yisrael. So now the Maimer is going to explore, what is he thinking about Shema Yisrael. So first he's going to go into the word Echad. So he says, line 3, Kipirish, Echad hu, what is the meaning of Echad? Hashem is one. So he's going to give now a very basic type of explanation of the word Echad. Hu she'en kayotzebay. Echad means he's one, nothing like him. The Medrash, like it's brought down the Medrash, Hashem Echad ein ba'ilum kayotzebay. The Medrash says, what does it mean? Hashem is one. There is nothing like him in the world, which is like a very simple thing. You know, before we learn Chassidus, what does it mean Hashem Echad? There's no other God. So that's what it means. Ein ba'ilum kayotzebay. There's nothing like the Eibishter. He is one of a kind. One, that's Echad. And the Rebbe says we find a similar type of usage of the word Echad by Yidden, by Avram Avinu. V'chein ba'Avram namar by, so too concerning Avram. It says in the Navi in Yecheskel, Echad haya Avram. One was Avram. What does it mean one was Avram? There were millions of people on the planet. Why do we say one was Avram? The meaning of saying one was Avram is in the days of Avram Avinu, there was no one like him. He was completely unique, completely different than everyone else. So, in a similar vein, the Eibishter is considered one because there's nothing like him. The Rebbe is going to elaborate, what does it mean there's nothing like him? Further, line 7, though there's the general chain order of descent of all the worlds, so seemingly there are others that are seemingly God-oriented, God-similar, etc. Still in all, you are the one before and prior to the world was created, and you are the same from when the world was created, so now we're going to get a little bit deeper into the concept of Echad. Now we're saying that Hashem is the one, you are the one that was before the world was created, and you are the one after the world was created, means to say that nothing in the creation caused any type of change. Because I, Hashem, am unchanged. Meaning, despite the fact that there was a creation of the world, and the creation of the whole Seder Ishtalshalos, In no way, shape, or form did this add anything. Did this make a new status of the Eibishter? The Eibishter is the same exactly as he was before there was Seder Ishtalshalos to after Seder Ishtalshalos. So to explain that, he's going to explain how the creation of Seder Ishtalshalos works, and based on that, it's going to be understood how there's no one besides him. And the reason for this matter is because the entire chain order of descent of the worlds is only from a ray. Now, let me just give a simple or maybe simplistic example of this. A ray means a revelation. We said before, there's nothing of the essence there. It's only an expression and showing outward something that is there. So, let's say a person is alone in a room. All of a sudden, he sees an image of himself in a mirror. A mirror, as we know, is really a reflection of light that bounces off of him, bounces off the mirror, etc. We're not going to say that when you bring a mirror into the room, or multiple mirrors, or hundreds of mirrors into the room, with hundreds of images of the person, that all of a sudden, this person is not alone anymore, but he's surrounded by hundreds of people. In no way. These are all ha'aras of him that have no significance and didn't change anything. He's still the only one in the room. Just to use a modern type of concept of how light doesn't impact the etzem and doesn't add anything to the etzem. In a similar vein, one could say the same thing about a picture of a person. Is also, it captures how the light bounced off the person and then was captured in the lens, etc., etc. So all of a sudden, if I have a picture of the person in the room, doesn't mean that now this person is not alone, because he has a picture of the person, he has a picture of himself in the room. So that's why Hashem is unchanged, because everything else is only a ray of the Eibishter. And the Rebbe is now going to go into the different levels where this ray comes and how it develops and so on. So he says in line 12, what is this ray? Shehi bechinas malchus de Ein Sof. The ray begins with malchus of the infinite, in other words, the last level before the Tzimtzum Adishon. And the truth is that even that last level, v'gam bechinazu, hi l'mayla megeder ishtalshus esfiris. Even this direct revelation of Hashem, which is like the closest in a way to Him, is still beyond the whole category of the chain order of descent and all the spheres, because to such a degree that's brought down, if there wouldn't have been a Tzimtzum Adishon, if from Malchus Ein Sof we would try to make a creation, if the would have come directly from Malchus of Ein Sof, first of all, in quantity there would be much more. Instead of being 10 spheres, there would be innumerable, an unending and infinite amount of spheres. Another thing would have been if they would have come from Malchus Ein Sof, they wouldn't have been defined in the way that they're defined now, of Chochmah Bina Das, not like the spheres that we know now, that exist now. And how did it come about? And the reason why they came into being 10 spheres. 10 and not 9. 10 or 10 and not 11. This is specifically through the Tzimtzum. That is, what we're talking about is the first Tzimtzum. That's the famous Tzimtzum Adishon. So first there was Malchus Ein Sof. Malchus Ein Sof is already only Ahara. Then there had to be the Tzimtzum Adishon. And afterwards came a thin and narrow and short line. Through that came into being the chain order of descent and the spheres. At the beginning, and the first of all the spheres is the sphere of Chochmah. And what's the relationship of Chochmah to the Eibishter? Very far, very insignificant. It's incomparable to the Ein Sof and to the Eibishter. Like it says in the pasuk, Kulam b'chachma sisa, everything you made with chachma. So we learn out from this that the juxtaposition of chachma and asiya teaches us shehi kasiya gufnis, that Sfiras HaChachma is as far from Hashem as a physical, a bodily action. Just like anybody can understand that an action of the body, of a physical body, is so distant from Hashem, so even the top of the four oilamas, Chachma Atzilus, which is so high, is still considered as far from Hashem like a physical action. And therefore, because it's so far in essence, the only way Chachma Atzilus can come into being is through going through all these processes. Is through the tzimtzum and the drawing down of the line of from the Oid Sof. Now, the truth is, there's even more the Rebbe is going to explain. In addition to this, we're holding on page Yud Beis in line 3, even after the tzimtzum, and drawing down the kav, the line, it's still not enough. We need another process of additional constrictions, additional limitations. It's still not possible to be that Chachma should come into being. They cite as dafke only through the level of hairs. That's the idea that's brought down in Kabbalah, that Abba and Ima, father and mother, is going on Chachma Bina. In Mazel, the Mazolas are the levels of Arich Anpin, the level having to do with the Yud Gimel Midas Arachme. So, in the Mazel, they are contained and included in. In other words, they came out of the level of the Mazolas. And the significance of the Mazolas is going to be an idea of Tzimtzum, like we'll soon explain. That in the 13 attributes of mercy, number 8 is the source of Chachma. It's V'noitzer usually brought down. It's from, it says V'noitzer Chesla Alof in V'noitzer. That's the 13th mazel, the 13th attribute, which is the level of Anake. For whatever reason, how they're divided, etc. What is the significance of the mazolas in this process, in this development, in this limiting the light? So he says, the Inin HaMazolas U'al Derech Inin HaSayris Ba'adam Lamato. The idea of the mazolas is similar to the idea of hairs down here below, by a person down here below. The hairs only get from a ray of the person's energy. They come through the separation of the bone of the skull. The source of all life in the person, the core life force, resides in the brain, and the hair breaks through the barrier of the skull, and it gets the life force of it. So it's understood how little life force and energy there is in the hair in comparison to the brain. In the similar vein, so mazolas are also the idea of hairs. The coming into being of the spheres of Chachma Bina idea mazolas dafke specifically through the mazolas behind this means shagam lachar tzimtzum v'amshach sakav. Also, after the tzimtzum and the drawing down of the line, naseis havas spheres Chachma Bina idea side is dafke. It comes into being the spheres of Chachma Bina specifically through the hairs. So that's again another indication of how far it comes down. And the Rebbe is going to bring in further in the Maimer that this explains an expression that we always used in davening. We use a phrase, Elekeinu v'elekei aviseinu. And the Rebbe is going to speak about, if we're going in order, Elekei Avasenu is higher and far and precedes Elekeinu. So maybe it should be Elekei Avasenu before Elekeinu. It's going to connect it also with Hashem Elekeinu, Hashem and Shema Yisrael. Okay, we'll stop over here.